It's such a pleasure, Jabir, to finally share our many conversations also publicly to a wider audience. So thanks a lot for taking the time and talking to me today here.
Thanks, Joel. It's really honored to be sharing a platform, a stage with you.
Yeah, likewise. And since we have listeners from different parts of the world where obviously waste management systems work completely differently, I think my goal for the conversation today is to create a bit more of an understanding and also empathy for the situation of people working on the ground, since I mean, Green Rooms is obviously doing the heavy lifting and we're kind of just the platform in the background. We want to mostly give you the stage also today to explain how things work in India. And one topic that often comes up in the conversations and when we speak about waste management, no matter if it's in India or Indonesia or any other country of the world, is the term of informal waste management. So maybe you can talk us through how the standard Indian waste management system looks like, or how things were in Kerala, for example, before you started Greenworms, and what the informal sector is.
Yeah, in India, really in terms of, because I will be speaking mostly about solid waste management. That's also specifically about municipal waste management. I'm not an expert, or I have not done any work in a liquid waste or hazardous waste or a construction waste or a biomedical waste management. So it's mostly it has been around municipal waste and also mostly around plastic waste. So in India, there are there isn't any uniform or like there is no one system which is applicable across the country. It's such a large country, so it varies from regions to regions, because I'm based in mostly in one of the southern part of India. So it has based on geographies, based on the populations, based on the local culture, based on the community which lives in this local area, the type of waste which generates, and also the disposal mechanism, and all, it's all varies. For examples, I usually categorize into broadly it's an urban waste, especially in major cities like Delhi or Bombay or Bangalore. That's the big cities. It's a huge, it's a huge landfill sites there. There's a huge funding. The government is more focused there, or a lot of big companies coming up with it's waste to energy companies. A lot of recent, so waste is a big issues, and there are a lot of works going around, though which is very completely inadequate, or it's not sufficient to the standards of waste which generates, for example. So, but examples, when you go for a tier 3 or tier 4 cities, we call it semi-urban areas. There's a different mechanism in place. So I usually work mostly in a rural part of the country. That's also very remotest part of the country. That's also mostly in a coastal part of the country, not on basically on the mainlands. For example, the informal waste management, so informal waste collectors, especially the so-called rack pickers or waste collectors, it's pretty huge. For example, in India, certain studies suggest that 1.5 million to 4 million rack pickers lives in India. Especially Delhi, like 500,000 of rack pickers only in a city like capital city like Delhi. So what happens? A lot of people migrates from rural part of countries, to find their livelihoods. The scrap or waste collection is one of their activity which they do it. So there are so in mainly in urban India, talking about, there's a huge informal workforce working around this waste. So again, if you break it down to this informal waste collectors, there are a couple of waste collectors, for examples. Uh, some rack pickers, they works in landfill sites. The government may have landfill sites. They work in the landfill sites and scavenge through the waste and pick it up, whatever valuables, and to extract some salvage value, and then they usually sell it outside to some smaller scrap dealers. Then there are other set of scrap dealers, waste collectors, better than these people. They go around each houses and collects these newspapers, cartons, or some metals, in a tri-wheeler vehicles and all, pullers and all. So usually they are a little better of people. So there's another set of, they don't collect like multi-layer plastics or low value plastics or non-recyclable plastics. They don't, so usually they collect mostly newspapers on high value materials. That's another set of people. Then there are there are other set of waste collectors also, who actually goes to the door to door collection, which is not 100% formalized. They go, for example, they collect all kinds of waste and they charge some nominal fee, from households or commercial establishments. Their revenue may not only come from by selling the recyclable materials. The non-recyclable, they just put it in the government yards and all, and selling recyclables and some subscription free from month also. There are some bit of semi formal setups. So there are different kinds of waste collectors, in India, and also there is a huge workforce, because the government do not have adequate infrastructure, and these people are not counted, or they work in a very unhygienic conditions. For examples, exposed to a lot of hazards, abusements, harassments, and also they work in a very filthy or dirty part of the, in any city you visit in India, there will be always a backyard of the city. So these people will be living in mostly in those in and around the landfill sites and all. So that's very risky, and it's very pathetic conditions, especially for these people. And we are trying to actually formalize the waste collection systems in India, and also the kind of areas where we operate, there are no waste collectors or the so-called rat pickers in place. So we usually train this unemployed, or people who has only few days of employments in a year. We generally train them, we hire them, we train them. Usually you give dignity to their job, or give respect to their job, giving them better uniforms or working conditions and all, fixed incomes and all. Then you actually induct into your formal wage collection system. So that's how, so our workforce has been mostly around 90% workforce has been around women workforce. So that's the collection. We follow a very different system than the mainly in the other part of the country.
Yeah, this is super interesting. And one point that I'd like to dig a bit deeper in, if I look at me or my friends in my closer bubble, for example, living in Berlin, we do have different waste bins where we do sort the waste. At the same time, for us, when we throw something into the bin, it has no value for me as a consumer anymore, right? It doesn't matter if it's a yogurt plastic cup or if it's an aluminum can from some vegetables or whatever. I throw it in the bin, and to me the perceived value is zero. I'm happy that someone comes and picks it up. You mentioned now that there are different collectors for different types of waste, and they are looking for different materials. Can you tell me what are the materials in highest demand? What is it that the people really go after and collect?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Joel. See, first interesting things you said. For examples, maybe in other countries and all, segregation at source. Maybe for example, you segregate into plastics, papers, or glass, or electronics, or some other components and all. For example, in India, a huge problem these people are facing. Even now, we face in our facilities. Because we handle this waste with manually, we are segregating this waste, manually we are collecting this waste. We collect waste in a bags and it comes to a facility, we segregate it manually, with our own hands. So what happens, there will be a lot of, for examples, sanitary napkins and diapers with human excreta, and some biomedical with syringes, blood bags, even from the hospital, from the household also you get these kinds of waste. Some there are cuts, rashes. So a lot of such issue also faces because of non segregating at the source, because so there is no so somebody gives us away the waste, it's a nicely and clean way, a lot of problem can be solved from the people behind the scene, especially from the if you go for segregation handling or other reprocessing process. So that's the first thing. Segregation at source is very, it's very bad here, but still it's improving, maybe I would say. And that's the first thing. And second thing you said, Maybe I think because I have been to some other countries, for example, I have been to some Dubai and some other Gulf countries and all. I would say India has India has got a very better waste management system in terms of the kind of we even for example, so Dubai airports, daily generates millions of tissue paper, these kinds of a tissue paper. How about so nobody picks it up, everything goes to the landfill there because it's a low value tissue paper, white napkins, but in India, we pick it up these materials and we get a decent price for this material. So for example, a milk sachet, a tetra pack, a fruity packet, in terms of a tetra packs containers. So since it's for our own livelihood and all, there is a really, though it's a informal recycling system. That is, India has got a really robust recycling system, but mostly works in informal way. They may not have a wastewater treatment facility. They may not follow the other compliances method. They may not have this safety mechanism. But every material it has got bio. For example, as you said, maybe it's a plastic cups, and it's not like only metals, a milk sachet, everything, at least in terms of recyclable white films, the transparent white films and all. So so in India, the recovery rate is, for example, I would say, if you give me the so-called pure waste which has no value as per the other terms, I may be able to recover 90% of it. So for example, so just a thrown away papers, everything can be, even a brushes, toothbrushes, we recover, even clothes has, for example, some purpose in terms of if it can be reused some other way, it has some purpose. Some footwear has got some certain PVC, certain footwear has. So I mean, yeah, in terms of recovery rates, while I compare some other so-called developed countries and all, so we have got a, we will be able to the lowest value of materials, we have buyers and we have infrastructures, and though it's informal way, that's a good thing about which I have observed while comparing other countries.
Yeah, and I can absolutely second that. I still remember when I first went to India for the first time and kind of did my research on the local waste management. Um, we have this tendency coming out of Europe and pointing at India or Indonesia as like the countries that are polluting the oceans and are a big problem and mismanaging everything. But actually, the true circular economy works much better in India than it does in Germany, because for exactly the reason that you just mentioned, right? Even the lowest material somehow finds a market where it can be reused, repurposed in whatever way. And I remember driving down a street, I think it was easy 1-2 kilometers, and left and right were just people that were selling old transmission or gearboxes for trucks and old tires and everything. So everything that can be reused is reused. And I found that extremely inspiring about India. And then at the same time, you do see those landfills and you do see a lot of then also plastic waste that ends up there, right? And the majority of what you can see there, in fact, is in the end this flexible packaging, more specifically sachets, multi-layer packaging. And can you explain a little bit why that is an issue for you as a waste management company also? And by the way, I see that there's a question in the chat. We will do a quick round of Q&A in 5 to 10 minutes roughly.
Yeah, see, I think so. There has to be a couple of things has to go, has to align each other for a very proper. For example, a kind of a place where I'm operating, so only 50% of households are giving us waste. The rest of people are still throwing away, in their backyard, so they burn it, or they, they like into the backwaters or backyards and all. So I mean, only 50% of people I am able to collect only from 50% of households. So there is a lot of waste gets uncollected. So this, a lot of, they don't think it as waste needs to be managed properly. It needs to be processed properly. They just, due to various factors that they don't really care about it. So there is a good chunk of waste gets uncollected in every part of this place. So automatically it will, put into the environment. That's the first part. some other place of this places where the waste is being collected, there is a door-to-door waste collection system, in place at least. But what happens, it reaches in a, some landfill sites or some dump sites, or it gets piled up. There is no system for, though collection and transportation is, there no system for reprocessing, reuse, or recovery. There is no proper system. And some places there is a collection, there is infrastructure for that, and there is a collection is there, but the maintenance is not there. Though the infrastructure is there, there aren't enough people, professionals, there to manage the whole waste management system. Or some places maybe it's a lack of financial support or some other things. So I think collection, transportation, and this disposal mechanism, a lot, plus a management system needs to be there. It's everything has to be there properly. So this a lot of, this is something I have realized, what is missing in India. And that's what, so it's going to, for examples in other countries, maybe there is an engineered landfill. There is no such, things called engineered landfills. It's just a pure, open landfills, and people here consider it's a drain or a river or a streams and all. It's something, we say it's okay. The waste is moving away from my eyesight, so that's going away. It's not, so that's usually prefer wide rivers and streams, the things that, they just want to get rid of their eyesight, not from this, environment. So that's not a huge, because of this inadequate infrastructure, because of this inadequate spendings on this waste management, because of, I would say, people's lack of interest in this. There are hardly very few people work in this space. For example, so I took up this as a job. A lot of people still says, he's a scrap dealer, he's a waste collector. People don't respect you. People they don't consider it's waste management or waste collection is something is a good job. It's a worthy and all. So I mean, so there are people a lot of people do not want to come to this sector. People still don't think that waste management is a serious issue, a serious crisis we need to solve, like in other countries. So all these factors put together, that's why we are, lagging behind. And another one more thing is, there is a lot of huge non-recyclable waste. For example, as you said, the multi-layer plastics. There are some styrofoam waste. There are some polyurethane PU waste. There are some PVC flex. There are certain waste which cannot be recycled. What happens? There is no infrastructure to manage it or to process it. Recently, there is a lot of co-processing has come in place, but still there is a lack of incentive to collect such materials on the grounds. So I think that's also the so-called non-recyclable, very low-value material is also another things which is actually polluting this environment, which you can see around environment anywhere in India.
Yeah, I think you you mentioned an extremely important point there. If we connect it back to what you said earlier, right? Even this tissue can be recycled, and thus it will be recycled in India, because there's a way how you can extract value from it. But you just said, for example, the non-recyclables, they cannot be obviously be recycled. So there is no market for it. And what does that mean for you as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, from an economic perspective, also for your operations? It's like, why should you collect that material in the first place, and how much of your operations does that, or of the waste volumes that you collect, is that actually in sheer volume?
See, there is for me actually, I collect only those non-recyclable and low-value waste which no one else collects. I mean, so-called scrap dealers, or we collect only those material which otherwise would have thrown away into, or thrown away into some water bodies, or they burn it at household. So we collect only low value material. That's also 70%. It's a plastic waste. Other than that, it's footwear, some cloth, thermocols, some glass waste, a bit of electronics waste. Mostly the dry waste from households. So for examples, in the plastic waste itself, more than 45 to 50% comes this either this contaminated with a bit of dirt, or this multi-layer plastics, this printing, printed plastics and all. So which is a huge, for examples, it was a big issue before, maybe I think organization like Clean Hub has started supporting us to collect and dispose this properly. So this is a very major chunk in this plastic waste, because a good chunk of recyclable goes to this informal scrap dealers, into the system, and the rest of things, we get very small percentage of the recyclable. Mostly this non-recyclable plastic is one of the major material comes in our facility. So there is a cost of collection, there is a cost of transportation, and there is a cost of proper disposal as well. So this has been, but there is no salvage value. There is no value for that. So managing this another 40% of this, the recycled plastics, meeting the cost of this, it has always been a dilemma for us. So I think there are like Clean Hub, there are organization who who supports us to meet this, to meet the cost of this managing the non-recycled waste. So even I'm also thinking of if there is any way which we can make some value-added products in this, especially the multi-layer plastics waste. And I think to some extent the dirt and other contamination, food waste and other contamination can be reduced over the period of time. But still there is a good chunk of multi-layer plastics which is which anything and everything is packed nowadays in this thing. So so this is a pretty big issue for me, to run this business very self-sustainably. If I don't find a solution for this, I may not be able to scale up this operations of waste collection.
Uh, Thanks for shining light on that. And since we anyway speak about financial incentives also to collect certain types and about the economic situation, let's also dive into the questions that we get here on the chat. One of them comes from Hannah. By the way, just a short note on that. If you are in the plastic space dealing with plastic, Hannah is currently running a survey. Maybe you can get in touch with her to fill that. Would really help the science behind it. Hannah asks, how can you incentivize source separation in India? Is education enough? Are taxes and fines needed? What's your opinion on that, Jabir?
Yeah, I think source segregation, for examples, certain educating people, around 50% of people does it voluntarily, and as you said, maybe some education and awareness programs, understanding them, they do that. Okay, so there is a sense of, I would say in 50%, especially in those places where I'm operating. And of course education would help. Second set of people, what happens, I have done a lot of awareness campaigns around it. People would say, okay, I'm happy to segregate it, but for the collection, people come, municipality come, they mix it up, and and what and they may be, the dumping may be there. So they are not confident about the system. Why would they segregate it without taking an extra effort? Because they don't trust the system, afterwards the segregation. So a lot of people said, can you come and collect it, then I will come and segregate it, because we segregate it and then the rest of people would mix it up, doesn't make sense. So I mean, it's just that education may not help. Some forward linkages has to be proper. And of course, and I also seen that around 20% of people, they need sticks in there, like some legal compliances, some fines or all those things, which really works for them, especially even the peer pressure. I know that some communities has been giving us the waste properly, but the nearby communities, neighbors were not still burning it. So these people went to them and said, okay, we are doing it properly, why are you not doing it properly? So some peer pressures and all those things would work. Of course, I mean, maybe 10-20% people fines and things. I think that recently there was very interesting things happened. There was an as per the 2019, it's the 2016 plastic waste management rules in India. So a lot of brands now, it has become this extended producer responsibility has become a law in India. So a lot of brands, the government has given a strict instruction that you need to collect, and you also need to take the responsibility of the plastic waste which generates in the environment. So a lot of brands in these recent years has come forward, to especially to invest or to put in money to assist their waste recovery systems or put in infrastructures. And although it's they are giving very minimal amount, but I mean the taxing or the compliance aspects also really I realized that it's a huge difference on the market, at least for these non-recycled plastics. So some incentives has taken place. Brands also, I think the compliance really did work. I think it's a couple of it's just not one aspects. Education along with education along with good waste collection infrastructure, of course, with other compliances. I think everything has to go along to go for a better segregation.
And the point on trusting the system is actually same thing here in Germany, right? If you talk to someone who's like, nah, I'm not segregating my waste, because in the end it all goes into the same process, which, by the way, if you're listening, is just not true. I think if the batch of waste is bad, then obviously you need to dispose of the entire thing. So if you do a better job segregating and separating our waste, less waste will be eventually mixed up. So do trust the system. There's a great initiative currently going on in Germany by the dual systems. Inform yourself. If you have questions, get in touch with us. I see more questions coming up. One from Rob. This also goes to you, Jabir. How do you deal with the financial component payment behavior? We have learned that despite having agreements signed with municipalities or even some NGOs, that does not automatically mean you really get paid. Promises are easily made, but complying to what has been agreed seems a problem. How do you deal with that? And I hope you don't have that issue with us.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. I think I know Rob. We're trying to work on some projects. It's always a problem in India. Even you want to do a lot of good things in terms of but financial sustainability, or the income, because we are a for-profit organization. We are not run by any donations or other things. We'll have to make money from these things, and we'll have to. It's not that make money means not deriving any profit. Rather, you're just reinvesting whatever you get extra or balance. So doing everything on a, we'll have to do everything on a cheaper way, and keeping all stakeholders happy, and meeting, of course, the law of the land. And that's the, so trying to reduce the cost in every ways. And of course, just not this municipalities. And because in India especially, nobody pays for people, nobody feels that waste is something you should pay off to get rid of. And everybody is saying, if you want to manage waste, you collect some and you do it, but you'll have to find your own way out of it. So that's still a big problem financially, how to make this whole projects financially self-sustainable. Maybe that's always a struggling part, and that's where we're trying to add some value. We're thinking of doing some value addition of the waste. As of now, we're just transferring to the end users or recyclers. There has been always the challenge. It's still a challenge even once you grow. But we are able to keep our in terms of at least bottom of the pyramid, the waste collectors, we are able to pay them well. I mean, at least we are able to make them happy, and so that's how it's going.
Okay, and then speaking of growth, I mean, I know that you're doing amazing work, and I know about the plans and about where you're all expanding to, and we're super happy to be part of some of those projects. But we have a question here that goes almost pan-India. In some states in India, the government is doing the collection and managing. How do you work with local municipalities? What are the challenges in scaling up in other states in India? And I know that Hari, he's from Andhra Pradesh. Maybe you can, obviously, since there's a new project coming up in Andhra.
See, there are two ways we do the things. One, the government may have these good waste collection systems, or they may have some own system. But mostly a lot of people fail in terms of managing this waste. So we manage their this material recovery facilities or this dry waste collection centers. So segregation, handling, or compacting forward linkages would be always a problem for them. So we some places we manage only their dry waste collection centers or this waste management infrastructure. especially this segregation handling and other aspects, material recovery facilities. Some other places, so of course we use science, a 1 year contract or 2 year contracts, and based on this, the size of the municipalities. And other systems where you actually even you also help in terms of extending the support for waste collection. So make sure that waste is being collected from every households on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, based on the type of waste you manage. And you also takes care of the collection, transportation, as well as these material recovery facilities. So these are the two modes of ways, and we do. And also the third way, we there are a lot of places, especially in Tamil Nadu places, they may have systems in place of collection, transportation, even managing the recyclable waste. They might be struggling to dispose their non-recyclable waste, mostly the multi-layer plastics and all. So we also do tie up with some municipalities, only to dispose their non-recyclable waste, which for co-processing. So that's a three methods we follow. And scaling things, I think we do a very small. Even I say always say, even if I manage a 30% of it's my own state, 30% of the waste. Maybe currently I'm managing 1.2% of the waste. So that would be a lifetime activity itself. So because, and also scaling up, it has its own local dimension. Something which works in Kerala may not work in Andhra Pradesh. Something which may not work in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So it has a lots of local dimensions. A single solution may not work. I think there are many organizations with technology platforms. There are. I think something good I have observed in the last at least 5 years. Many people has coming forward, at least identifying it as an issue, and many solutionaries are coming forward. A lot of investors, are social impact investors, are coming forward. So there is a good progress, but we really want to work in mostly in rural areas, so part of coastal part of the country, mostly in southern uh, India. That's where we are at.
All right. Yeah, we are already a bit over time, but we have more questions. I don't know, Jabir, do you have some more minutes to speak, or?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. All right, perfect. And then let's jump into a question from Sayush. Do you think that ultimately waste management should be the responsibility of governments? Can I get both of your perceptions on this? Obviously, you can start, Javier. How do you see the involvement of both your organizations in the waste management sector aligned with your respective government policies in the future?
Okay.
It's a long question, a lot of
Yeah,
ground to
yeah.
cover.
See, I don't think so. It's a responsibility of only governments. I think, but we cannot completely, exclude the government responsibility as well. Government has to do its own role, maybe with policies, compliances, and wherever support is required. For example, I work in a regions. It's a fisherman community, and so usually we charge a very nominal fee, rupees 50 rupees per month and all, from households to meet some of these expenses. But this fisherman community, they don't they are saying we will give you waste or will not give you this small subscription fee, because it's a big cost for them. So I mean, some places maybe government needs to put in money, in terms of. So I mean, along with the policy and compliances, wherever the funding is required, financial incentive is required to, whether for the collection, transportation, infrastructure, everything, government has to take its own responsibility. But I mean, at the same time, whether it's a private businesses or private businesses or other non-government organization, they also need to take the responsibility, their own responsibility, at least, whether it's a financial responsibility or some I mean the sustainability aspects. We are also, some ways we are also part of, or maybe contributing, to this this issue. So that's how my perception. And organization wise, I think we are creating the whole the basic idea. When I started the organization, the basic motive was, a lot of people said, I'm happy to give you the money, and I'm also happy to segregate the waste, or but who is there to collect the waste, who is there to collect, to segregate the waste? So I means there was none to take the responsibility. Maybe a brand is coming to you and saying, okay, we feel that we are part of, we do have some, or we do take some responsibility, but how can you contribute to this cause, or how can you be part of the solution? So their business is not, managing waste, right? So we can give you money, can you take up this responsibility? So I think that's where that's a basic motivation for people like me. Somebody is looking for a solution but unable to find one. So I think that's where I fit in, or we fit in this whole ecosystem.
And maybe to add my own 2 cents to this, especially for the context that we are currently in, I think that the government is obviously the right stakeholder to set the rules, to set the general frameworks of how things should be done. So, for example, in Germany, we have a zero landfill policy since the late 90s, if I'm not completely wrong, which meant there was a lot of investment into waste management infrastructure. If all that was now deployed in the right way with all the waste to energy plants that we built in Germany is maybe debatable. Maybe we should have invested a lot more into circular materials instead of building waste incinerators. But that's one of the opinions. I do believe the strength of private organizations is to make things more efficient, and especially, or that's the capitalistic system in the end, right? It's like to make things more efficient. It obviously has its it's downsides as well. If everybody knows that Germany is one of the biggest waste exporters, or used to be one of the biggest waste exporters, we have the same thing in the US and in the UK, that a lot of waste is exported, especially that low value waste, right? Because again, organizations optimize for in the end their own bottom line. And if it's cheaper to send the waste abroad to a country where they say, okay, give me $10 a ton, and I'm just going to put it somewhere on a landfill in the outskirts of my city, I'm going to do that instead of paying the gate fee of $50 or whatever it is to German waste to energy plant. And this is where we see CleanHub going in the long term, is to bring in a lot more accountability to all stakeholders on the table, right? Because if I'm a brand and I'm paying an EPR fee, I want to be sure that the EPR money is put to the best possible use, and that I can prove that that the waste went where it's supposed to go, that it went in a managed way, and not suddenly appears in, I don't know, 3 countries further on an illegal landfill and eventually ending up in the ocean. So bringing in that accountability to all stakeholders on the table, this is where we see our role. And the second thing is that, fortunately, a lot of the organizations in Europe, the US, UK are now feeling the breath of the consumer that says we do not accept that behavior anymore of this general pollution, right? In Germany, as I just said, we already have some of the laws in place. So if you're putting a chocolate bar onto a supermarket shelf, you are already paying your waste management fee with the purchase of that chocolate bar, in a very simplified version. At the same time, the same chocolate bar manufacturer is allowed to sell the chocolate bars to India, put it on the shelves there without paying the waste management fee. And this is not okay. This is what leads in the end to the pollution. And as I think everybody learned, the big issue in the end for you, Jabir, and please correct me if I'm misstating anything here, but the big problem is to fix the economics of waste management, right? If you pump this non-valuable material into the market and there's no economic value of taking it out, it's like, obviously nobody's going to do it except for obviously in this case Jabir, right, who says, okay, this is not okay, we can't live with that, I'm going to start and try to build a business case around that to counter that issue. And this is where we need a lot more funding, either from governments, private organizations, voluntary plastic credits, whatever. But waste management, in my perspective, is first and foremost an economic problem. And then we have one last question, and Jabir, feel free to answer it or not. Obviously, this is a public forum. But what are the main revenue streams for you at Greenworms?
See, we are As I said, we do have some government contracts. We do have some government gives us certain municipalities gives us waste to manage, gives us money to manage the waste. So of course, is some of this some projects government does put some shares of their money. And the second revenue is actually by selling these recyclable components from our materials. So by selling this recyclable waste to recyclers, that's the second set of revenue. Third revenue, of course, is this plastic credits or this extended producer responsibility EPR money from Indian brands or some global brands. So that's my third set of revenue. These are the, yeah, this is how I, and also some places we do charge money from commercial establishments or households. Like we charge some nominal fee from households. We are saying you do, it's your waste, you are supposed to dispose it properly, so we are giving you a service. So as a service, as a waste management service provider, we do have some customers, like hospitals, hotels, apartments and all. So we charge them some waste disposal fee from them. So yeah, so business to business, business to governments, and business with some plastic credits and other ways, and of course selling these recyclables.
All right. Thank you very much, Jabir, for shining a light on how things work. I hope this helped the audience to build a bit the bridges between Europe and India. It's crazy to me to see how many parallels there are between the systems, and again how much better the actual recycling works in India. And I think this deserves some recognition as well. So thanks a lot for taking the time. Thanks a lot for the work that you do, Jabir, and we're looking forward to hopefully build a lot more projects in the
Sure,
future.
sure. Thanks, Joel, and thanks to people, especially in Europe, who has taken interest to choose India and contribute in whatever these little ways you can to solve our problems too. So thank you.